Hey there, welcome to our new episode of the Mix Minute. Today Ed Donnelly's going to show us how to put a microphone in front of a guitar speaker, and then he's going to show you how to put two microphones in front of one guitar speaker.
All right, so the first thing we want to look for is the dust cap of the speaker. And you can take a little flashlight, shine it in there. Essentially what you're looking for is the center of the speaker, which is a smaller circle inside the larger cone. So now, once you've identified it where it is, take the microphone, and you want to start with it facing right at the center of that cone. Distance away from the grill, I usually put it somewhere around there. So what's that, about 2-3 inches? Once you have it there, and you get your guitar sound going, and you're listening to your tone, you also want to listen to what the microphone's doing, and that's when you do start to move it around a little bit, possibly. If it's a little too bright, you can always move it out towards the edge of the cone. Or you often see an SM57 at about a 45-degree angle. And all those little movements make a big difference in how the guitar sounds. So you want to listen very carefully and not just haphazardly throw it up. And then also, the other mic position is out here somewhere. Put it out a few feet, let those waves come out and hit it. You're going to get a much different sound. And, I'd say a rule of thumb is this is going to be a little bit more low-end heavy than this is, just due to proximity effect. But you're going to want to make sure that whatever you're doing with intention, and you're really finding the right spot to capture the tone of the guitar that you want. Now, another thing you can do is, I would say most of the time I use one mic on a guitar cabinet, but you will often see two mics used. Why? You have two different characters of microphone. This is a Royer 121. It's a ribbon mic, very smooth, very nice sounding. I love these on lap steel guitars. And then we have a dynamic mic. It's a 409, and you have different characters. So this is going to be a little more open, a little sparklier possibly. This is going to be a little bit more mid-range up front. So you want to combine or look at your options. But the important thing to do is you make sure that those capsules are in line. Otherwise, you're going to have phase issues. And phase issues, it's not the end of the world, but they tend to sound bad. We've got those capsules aligned as closely as we can to keep them the same distance from the sound source. So you can do it like this. You could try something like this, or you can separate them on the cone and out. But no matter how you position them, don't do this. Or actually do that and see how it sounds. And then put it back like that.
But if it sounds weird,
maybe it'll sound great.
It might be because it's out of phase.
It could be out of phase. Now, the other thing you can do with two microphones is, rather than blending the two sounds, is you can give yourselves options on a single take. If I end up using two mics on a guitar cabinet, probably 9 times out of 10, I'll mute one anyway. But I want to hear, what does it sound like through the dynamic? What does it sound like through a condenser or a ribbon mic? And that way you have options without having to do another take or spend time tracking multiple mics just to get tone. So that's the basics of where you want to put a microphone on a guitar cabinet.
So to expand on what Ed was talking about with this, I'm going to show you a few different mics here. These are the two that Ed was using. And I know this is backwards, but it's just easier to see this way. It looks cooler with the gold. We can much more clearly see the dust ring or the dust cap here on the cone, dust cap. So what Ed was talking about was basically that if you're going to use multi-mic, you want them to be on that circle there, right? So they could be opposite like this, like he showed you in front of the grill cloth, or they could be, above each other. Like, you don't want them next to each other unless they're right in the front, which is very bright sounding. You don't want them next to each other because the distance to the cone is a lot closer on this microphone than it is on this one. Here we have that far, right? And here we have about that far. So that can really, create some sonic havoc. So if you told me that you're going to use these two microphones and you had me place them for you, first of all, I'd turn them the right way, but they would be like this-ish, or maybe like that, or like that, just anywhere where they are exactly on the same plane, right? You see that? And against that dust cap. So I got to tell you, I just love it when you see things like this, 57, everybody's got one of them, and you get them aligned, and it's it's really interesting to see them like this. But when somebody does this, again, you have that huge distance from the Royer to the dust cap, and only a small distance to this one.
So one thing that a lot of people probably don't think about or realize on a speaker, because you're used to them in a cabinet, maybe you haven't handled a raw speaker like this, and what Michael was talking about, distance-wise, the cone actually tapers from the outside toward the middle, toward the dust cap. So that's the distance we're trying to talk about. We're saying if you put a mic here, well, clearly you're closer to the paper. You're closer to that cone here than you would be if you put a mic here. Now you've got another 2 to 3 inches. So you have to take into consideration when you're voicing, putting your mics up, that's 3 inches away from the paper. That's about 1 inch away from that paper cone. That's what we're talking about. You need them to be about the same wherever you put them. Same distance if it's there. I like to aim, for the crease there. Put mics where side. And if I'm using 2, I usually just split the cap and go 1 on either side.
Right.
Versus,
and you really do need a flashlight to see that through
you
a
have
speaker
to.
grill, right?
You have to. But that's what a speaker looks like when it's outside of a grill. And there is definitely a taper, and some much more than others. The larger the speaker, like a 15, a way steeper taper. So know that. And then like a little 6 or an 8, hardly any taper. So that you can get away with maybe not doing it properly, but it's good to know about the taper.
So again, we're looking at our ribbon here, and even though I have this backwards, the Royer there, it's still valid to mic this way, because from the back of a R121, you're going to get a brighter tone. This will be more full. When you're closer, you get a really full sound. The farther away you get, a thinner sound. But you don't have to jam one of these things right up in there. For a rock record, you might want to, and you might want to blend it with a 57 or something else. But you can get a great sound coming out here. Remember that that these ribbon mics actually have figure of 8 pattern, so that you're addressing not only from the front but also from the rear. So if you have a speaker that sounds really great in a room, walk around the room and find out where it sounds good. The sound of rock is close mic'd, right? Modern rock, we like things close mic'd. But you can have a great guitar sound coming out here.
Maybe like Jack White or somebody's going to use more of a roomy, that kind of
Exactly.
music. Yeah.
Exactly. So I frequently record guitars with just this one mic. And again, we're underscoring this. It's can you see that from if I'm pointing like?
Move this light a little bit.
Okay.
There you go. Much better.
Yeah. So, I'm going to basically point this thing right at that glue ring, right there. And it's going to be on the side or on the top or on the bottom. Not so much there for my taste, but really everybody has their different tastes. But one of these will work great. Other thing about these ribbon mics that's really fantastic is that they take EQ really well. Now, I got to tell you, though, that for me, the best guitar sounds don't end up having any EQ on them, not even in the mix, unless I need to brighten up the whole record, right? But generally speaking, I'm just putting the mic there, not even off axis. I'm just putting the mic someplace around that, and then, get the right sound, dial in the amp, a little less gain than you'd think you need frequently, and you're good to go.
And also maybe mention it's a fail-safe too, that if you can't monitor, like you're saying, if you're aiming there, you're probably going to get a usable tone, at the very least, usable. Maybe not your favorite, but it's always usable if you aim for the dust cap.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had to do this job recording cathedrals for Spotify live sessions. There was really no sound check. And we were doing front of house and capturing a live thing that I was going to mix for their EP and for the Spotify, sessions at Spotify thing. So without being able to hear stuff, I just did what has worked for me, 1,000 times in the past, which is again, just, I'm sounding like a broken record, putting one microphone at the glue ring on the dust cap. Idiot proof.